Hey everybody, welcome back to Communal Expressions. This is Eva Melton, co-host. I'm here today with my friend Richard Rice. Hey Richard, how are you?
I'm good, Eva. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm loving your backdrop, loving your shirt. Good to see you on screen today. And today, you guys know that we have been doing a series on COVID-19, the coronavirus, and just looking at it from various perspectives, how it's impacting everybody, not just a subset of people, and even how the marginalized or the most vulnerable during this time are being impacted. So today we have a special guest, Mr. Elliott. How are you?
I'm doing well. How y'all doing? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. Before your own way.
Okay. I am Thedweller. The Thedweller is my child. I'm currently not in the classroom, but this fall I'll be back in the classroom with some classes. And so online learning and teaching and integrating technology is kind of my wheelhouse. So what I do is like kind of lead by curiosity to inform, me a kind of decision. So my curiosity has kind of led me to have more of a global perspective of the COVID-19 and kind of help guide what I think might be coming down the pipe, because we can literally see weeks in advance with this particular pandemic. So yeah.
Definitely. That's a great point. I think that is perfect leads into the first question I want to ask you about a quote that you posted a few times on Facebook in regards to it's more important or more valuable to have multiple sources of valid information and multiple sources of income. Break that down for us a little bit and clean up your quote. I don't want to misquote you.
Okay. Well, no, that's actually pretty accurate. So one of the things as a school teacher, I found that like we have like a lot of young people that don't have a lot of empathy and have a lot of sharp objects. I had to learn very early on how to consider multiple perspectives and what multiple people think. And a lot of times, the kids would tell me what was the matter. And so that kind of taught me to look at multiple angles of a thing. And so that has taught me to kind of look at Twitter as a valid source or a valid platform for information. Because one of the things that happens, not just with this pandemic, but when there's a problem around the world, globally, people kind of go to Twitter to kind of find or resource answers. So even like right now, I've been suggesting that people find out where the hardest hit areas are and follow people on Twitter that are actually solving these problems in real time. And it's like somebody giving you the cheat sheet. Like they're literally showing you how to make respirators. I actually found MIT and Rice University, but they are putting together $100, $200 ways to make respirators. And basically, if you got 3D printers and access to a computer, they're putting the programs or the information that you need to download and begin to produce some of these things. And so those answers are in real time from the people that do them. Everybody has learned something on YouTube University. So the way that I understand it, the number one thing that isn't in the news to me that really inspired me to look at solving this problem this way is that most of the people on the news give you their Twitter handle. Like a lot of times when you watch sports, they don't even interview players anymore. You just get what they're doing on Twitter. And so it's a real good way to connect to individuals. But you'll start to see stories like, there are people right now that are providing face masks to hospitals that used to be clothes designers. Well, I know a lot of designers here that would love to be able to switch over and figure out how to maximize their talent and expertise and be able to apply it. We know that testing is a problem. Well, as the tests become available, there will be a cool thing if you can. I know I tweeted out about a company that makes a test and get results in as little as 45 minutes. So imagine we can purchase a test like this and we have someone that could drive around the neighborhood with swabs. I know Bill Gates was talking about there's a swab that he produces where you can just put it inside your nose, didn't have to go all the way to the back of your head. If you can get results like that the same day, we could actually go to black belt communities and underserved communities and find out who's positive, who's negative. Also trying to find out who's developing the test for the antibodies. Like people with antibodies right now, if you've gotten it and you've gotten better, you're like a superhero right now. So, and we really, when you think about it, the people that got the antibodies are going to be the first people that's going to get hired back at TSAs. They're going to be the first people to hire back in the service industry. The vaccine is not going to be available for another year, but the antibodies, as soon as we get a test, we need to know who they are. If you want to travel internationally, if there's some way to certify that you got the antibodies flowing to you, it may be easier. So those are the things that are coming down the pipe no matter what, right? And we need to already be thinking about those problems and how we can solve those problems and provide a platform so people can get valuable information to figure out what can they do to help people deal with this new world that is already developing.
Right. And I just want to pass it to Eva, but real quick, a quick follow-up, because this isn't my, obviously I've interviewed you before. We worked together on a transition team here in Birmingham as well. And so in terms of the ideas and the process that you laid out, like what do you see as a way for us to capture those and to implement them? Because I've studied some of the emergency relief acts that have come out from Congress, and there's specific references and allocations for folks that are ready to start solving these problems to access federal funds. So what do you suggest in terms of a process to move these ideas from concept to putting them into practice?
Zero to market. Basically, do it. Like, nobody knows how to do what's needed because it's never been done before. So the reason why I've been tweeting out the information to like the schools and engineers of university campuses, because they have 3D printers. They know how to use them. So they need that information, right? And so the people that are already in the healthcare profession, if you're already doing home-to-home healthcare, then you probably can get on the list to do home-to-home testing. You know what I mean? So if you already have a relationship in the medical industry at all, like all the dialysis places I see, those could be testing centers, or how can you convert hotels or dormitories into emergency makeshift hospitals, because you can isolate people in those. The places that are turning like arenas into hospitals, you're not gonna be able to quarantine people in an open space, but that's kind of for hospital overflow. But we can already start to outfit places that we know don't have hospitals at all. But if we got some of these emergency care ventilators, how do you train people to take care of the sick? Meaning, I may not have certification, but if I know how to take care of the sick and I'm sick, I may be able to be sick and be quarantined and help other people quarantine. Like, it's not like you can get COVID-19 squared. Like, if you got it, you know what I mean? Yeah, I've seen a lot of able-bodied people walking around inside that could be taking care of some other sick people if they had the equipment. So once we get the equipment, what is to know how to run it? And how can we produce what we need at an affordable rate? Because every other country that this is broken out in has universal health care. And the most important thing about the universal health care piece is not the cost. It's the fact that they have one system that they can feed all of the cases into, so they can actually see where it is. One of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is so we can find out who has it, but then we got to feed that information into a system. Not a healthcare system, but we have multiple insurance companies that don't feed into one system. So if you could come up with a system that all of the healthcare systems can feed into, that could help us find out where it is here, especially in underserved counties. So, I would say that all of these problems are currently being solved on Twitter. And so if you do any of these things, if you find somebody that do what you do on Twitter, they are giving you the cheat codes to what to do now. So I'm trying to be a valid source of information. So if you go on my Facebook timeline, you go on my Instagram timeline, you go on my Twitter timeline, I am tweeting valid sources of information from a lot of different places. And it looked like I'm just bashing Joe Biden, but I can't help that the news is not necessarily doing its job. And when I say the news, I'm talking about local news, because we don't have local media. So we don't have 100 reporters trying to get to the bottom of it. So we became more uninformed. And so every news has got a slant, and they didn't stop slanting because it's the end of the world. Well, because there's an outbreak of a pandemic, I think it's the beginning of the world, because we got to build the world we need. So that world.
I like that. I mean, you're aggregating. You're actually aggregating these valuable sources of information too, and curating as well. So there's additional value in that, and in addition to creating and putting out information from your perspective too. But go ahead, Eva. I know you were anxious to jump in.
Really? You said something that really stood out to me when you talk about the Black Belt in areas that don't have as many hospitals as we may have in a metro area. Kind of like when we first started off, it was like Alabama had 0 cases, or we got 20 cases, or we had not really tested anybody, right? And then the state started reporting just like on metro cities. They were not really, like I just found out this week, the mayor of Selma basically was posting about them opening up testing there. But I'm slowly seeing a lot of counties in the southern scene reporting anything is scary. But do you have any thoughts around that?
Again, like right now, I know the UAB is producing tests. I don't know what kind of tests. So what I've been trying to find is who is producing the fast tests, who producing them same day tests. Because we can't go down to the black belt and then mail something off. Because I have a feeling the government gonna count them like they count our votes. What I'm saying is, I think that it's important for us to figure out how to accomplish these things ourselves. Like the thing that jumped out to me is on March 1st was Bloody Sunday. Everybody from around the world and their mama was in Selma. It's what I'm thinking about. So I ain't wondering what's in Selma. I know what's in Selma because I know who brought it there. All these politicians that, well, a lot of people that don't never go to Selma need to never go to Selma. Like, and can we stop Bloody Sunday after this? Because it's the bridge named after racists anyway. Don't get me started on that. I'm just saying, I think we need to stop celebrating getting whooped across a bridge. But that's just me. And I've been down there and I got the signs and shout out to everybody protesting. But I think we got that part.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think, I don't know what motivates people to come together, but whatever that is, y'all decide what motivates you to come together. And if you're going to come together, do some work. But I don't think it needs to be about, commemorating or even celebrating something like that. I don't know what value that has as well.
But then the thing that I would also encourage people, there's a real old white guy named Noam Chomsky. And if you don't know who Noam Chomsky is, get to know who he is. He's not even dead yet. He's seen a lot of stuff, but he gives a perspective. But he talks about this concept of manufactured consent. And I posted a video today. It was a TED Ed video on what the word Orwellian means, But we really need to understand that most of us, unless we are intentional about it, we have a very myopic view of everything, meaning our worlds are small. They are because we have, and I don't mean that as an insult. Most of us in our small worlds have so much stuff to do. We don't have time to research everybody else's viewpoint. And since we know how people lie, we don't trust people. So that's why I have been suggesting find multiple sources of valid information, because just because I'm right don't mean you wrong. And we really got to understand that. Right. You know what I mean?
That's true. I mean, each perspective is fitting together, bringing additional value, and that's the value in Twitter, and it promotes this idea of democracy, and I think that we can have an opinion of American democracy and point out the fallacies and the inception and where we are today, still today, but the idea, the concept within itself, holds, in my opinion, spiritual value and obviously a lot of practical value, as you pointed out as well. And I guess my next question to you is even, we can do all of these things as citizens, individuals, but how do we do some of these things in spite of our government? What would you say to encourage people to say you're big enough to solve these problems that sometimes just seem so large?
Okay, so one of the things that I had to learn with students that I'll call difficult, because they're not bad, they're exactly like they was raised to be, but almost without exception, all of them, they didn't know how important they were to the class. They literally thought it didn't matter what they did. And really the whole class was messed up because of what they did. So I had to convince them that, hey, you're totally a big deal. And one of the ways that I would do it is most of us don't know what we are. When I say what we are in a literal sense. So the way that I started the conversation, and I'm full disclosure, I don't look at students as students. I look at students as people. And so I have found this works with just people. So I don't even like to use the term students because it's like we picking sides. Like I'm on the same side down. I'm a person too. So most of the time we see stuff eye to eye. But I think that most people are born with at least 3 ingredients. We're born with more than this, but there are at least 3 things that all of us are born with. Every person is born curious, right? Like even a 2-year-old won't stop asking why. Like you came here curious. Every person was born logical. right? Like if a baby crawl off the edge of a bed, the baby gonna learn, I'm not gonna crawl off the edge of that bed. It just makes sense. And every baby is born emotional. Like we always hear this phrase, "Are you in your feelings? You got in your feelings." But one of the reasons that I think we act immature when we get in our feelings, because the last time we was allowed to be in our feelings, we was children. If we stayed in our feelings, they would mature with us, right? So, in my opinion, those three ingredients came from thing against that is evil. So if you're not curious and you're not logical and you're not emotional, to me, something the matter with you. Now, most people are those things. How do you focus those things? So metaphorically, I just turned everybody's attention to the Incredible Hulk. I think the Incredible Hulk really was a black man, but it was too soon. They made him green. But all he does is focus his mad. Everybody mad, focusing on something. If every time you got mad, you painted, by the end of the year, you'll be Picasso. Ask me how I know. I'm a real good rapper. I started off stuttering. You know how mad I've been my whole life?
I feel it. I feel it. I do. I think it's
And that's how
important to
it
be able to,
works.
yeah, I feel that's important to channel your passion, your energy into something creative and an outlet, you know, and don't
But
suppress it.
something you
Yeah,
really
yeah,
want, though. See, it
that's
matters
true.
what you really
Yeah.
want. And a lot
Hmm.
of us, the why that we're doing stuff isn't big enough. We got such small whys. Like I look at people argue online, and the only reason they were arguing was to win the argument. That's so small. Like, why? Why you want to win the argument? So you can prove you knew more than him? Then you think he was an idiot? So why is it a big deal to you to win an argument against somebody you think is an idiot? Like it's such a small why. It's just a little why. I'm trying to save everybody. That why so big? That's a different motivation. You're trying to prove your homeboy wrong, or trying to get the most likes on IG or something. Like it's just such small whys. So we need to reevaluate our purpose. And right now we need to move on purpose with purpose. Everything else is extra to me. You know what I mean? Like brass tacks, gentlemen. You know what I mean? Like right now, like we got real problems to solve. If you can't solve a problem, I blame the school system. And the reason why I say that, the number one thing that schools teach us all how to do is follow directions. But right now, ain't no directions. You got to make something up.
Right.
And the cheat codes on Twitter, and we can honestly see who the bad kids are now. And when I say the bad kids, I'm classifying them like people classify bad kids, because kids is like they raised to be. My son is a good rapper and weird and obedient. You know why? Because his dad like that.
Right. And you,
It ain't hard to do. Your child is more like you than you want to admit.
no
And
doubt.
if not, then you probably ain't close to them. Because in my parent conferences, I kind of know what's coming.
Definitely. You know, I wanted to ask you about your TEDx Birmingham talk. Your topic, your subject was "You are a validating institution," and I mean, I think that's somewhat of an underlying conversation to what we're discussing right now, in terms of everyone having equal access to this global platform we know as Twitter. Everyone having their unique perspective based on their experiences and what's kind of been poured into them and the expectations of folks around them. And talk a little bit about that. Talk about the importance of us knowing that we all are validating institutions.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny how it came up, because I had a couple of students that thought they had figured out who my favorite student in the class was, right?
Right.
And I was curious to know who they thought. They broke down their whole argument. We think it's this, and they made a convincing argument. But I don't like being proven wrong, and so I told them they was partly right. That basically they all were my favorite student, just not at the same time. And then I went through and I reminded each one of them what they had done that year when they had earned the title of being my favorite student. I know once it was a guy named Jack. This is a true story. He actually said, like, if you really still, you can actually feel the earth turning. I've done it before. At that moment, he was my favorite student. Like, you know what I mean? But every child had a moment like that. But what that did, it validated them as a person, because they know at least one time. Now, some of them was my favorite student more than one time. Everybody get at least. Everybody, you got a whole year. You can't be my favorite student once. Like, come on, right? It's
Right.
not even that hard. But the point of it was, I would watch how quickly students would shoot other students' ideas down. And they didn't really realize the student thought it was a good idea before they shared it, and they were right. They just needed a little validation. And as soon as they came up with that idea, the only thing they was laughed at or whatever. And we don't realize how many great ideas die like that. I tell all my class on the first day of school, I say, listen, the world is pretty messed up, right? And everything that you could think of that's wrong with the world. Working on a better world. No pressure. That's day one. And a lot of the ideas, but it's so many ways to skin a cat, you know what I mean? It depends on how the imagination working. But it's just more fun when you use all the ideas, and that's what Twitter uses. Like, Google had this practice called 20% time of genius hour, where 20% of a worker's work week was they can work on a private passion project and whatever they wanted to work on. That's where we got Gmail from. That's where we got Google Docs from. It just came from people at Google working on something in their spare time. But that's how important supporting ideas and being in an environment of supportive ideas. I mean, if you really think about it, at the end of the 60s, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Black men invented hip hop. That's important to me. Like, that means more to me than I think it means to a lot of people.
When you take a sip of tea right quick, I saw you posted, this is funny, you posted, I think it was the Cookie Monster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I'm trying to do better. Listen. I got a cookie for that. I got a Valentine cookie. See, I got jokes. I got memes on my cookies, baby. I got memes on my cookies. I'm doing better. I got berries. Don't be fronting me on the YouTube.
The Cookie Monster was attacking a pan of
I don't know. He was going
cookies in the quarantine while he was in quarantine.
Yeah, man. Listen, I don't even buy cookies no more. That's why and the people that stay around me know I stopped buying cookies. It was terrible. It didn't matter what kind. I would start buying my least favorite cookie, like that was gonna help. I think you're chocolate chip. I ain't gonna get Oreo. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter. I just stopped buying cookies because like, all the cookies was like, wait a minute, didn't I have 2 bags of cookies yesterday? And I did. I really so yeah, that hit it close to home.
Yeah. So you talked about your students. What do you feel like, when Governor Ivey came out and kids are at home for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts around that? How that's the different, you can look at it from different, dynamics, perspectives, but how do you feel about it?
I had a Saturday school one time. And the reason I had a Saturday school is because we had just gotten a whole classroom set of Chromebooks. And the school that I was working at the time, the parents were so used to getting paper every week, paper packets and whatever. And I did a lot of Google Classroom. I did a lot of Google Documents. I did a lot of, video, And so the parents weren't getting papers home. I sent home like a report or whatever, but they used to seeing stacks of paper. So I had a Saturday class one time where I basically had class with students and their parents so they can actually see what we're doing. They can learn how to see it from the side of the teacher and the side of the parent. And a lot of times, like for example, on Google Document, one of the things that I like, if you give a group assignment, you can look at the history of the document and you can see who's been working on it the whole time or who waited to the last minute. And I love that because that's great in parent conferences. Because you can't lie and say you've been working on this 2 weeks when I'm looking at the last time you opened it was 2 weeks ago. And you can't do that on paper, but you can do that. And once I show parents that, like Google Documents, or when I show them Google Classroom, how I'll post a passage of a story and I ask questions and we go back and forth in the questions and the comments. So really, if you get into questions and comments, imagine every child in your class getting the comments from the teacher of how to correct the paper as opposed to grading a paper. So I'm grading the process because at the end, I actually got that idea. Lockamy, I think Reed Lockamy works at a high school or middle school. I can't remember. I think a high school. But he had this perfect paper project where he'll give an assignment of a paper on the first day, and it says due, like, let's say in 3 weeks or the end of the 9-week grade period. The point of it is that paper cannot have any mistakes by the end of the year. But the student will have different check-in points where you're being told, well, you need to do this, you this, and the child can go back and forth and go back and forth. So everybody gets 100 on that particular project, but also everybody learns how to write a perfect paper, you know. And I also like to use like poetry because a lot of times there, whatever the child where no matter in the school setting, a lot of times powerful. There's something that's real popular called 6-word stories. I forgot who made it popular, but I use it as 6-word summaries. A lot of times because, you know, people don't read a lot, they have a limited vocabulary. Well, less is more. And so we would try to summarize movies or books with exactly 6 words. And so one of my favorite movies of all time is The 5 Heartbeats. And one of my favorite movies of all time is Get Out. And both of those movies were my favorite movies for the same 6 words, right? And you're gonna sum that whole movie up in 6 words. Black male friendship saves the day. Now, imagine everybody trying to summarize a movie with exactly 6 words or a story. And then they start to realize I don't have to feel intimidated because I can't write a 100-word essay. I can sum up an entire book with 6 words, and everybody that read it be like, oh, I get that. But now we understanding the children, understanding metaphors and how to bring out power in as few words as they may have. And they're not limited by, you know, what's seen as a vocabulary deficit.
That's great. That's good. Tell us some of your current projects. What are you working on now?
Well, right now I'm trying to save Earth.
That's important.
The people on it.
That's right.
I'm trying to say the people on it. And the way that I'm doing it is not only being a valid source of information, but I'm retooling how to teach online classes, but I want to teach parents how to teach kids in this environment. Just because what I see coming in maybe a year or so, there's going to be a lot of parents don't want their kids to have that vaccine to start back. So you're going to have to homeschool. Might want to figure that out now. Because they probably going to let you homeschool. But then, you know, that's something else to deal with. So that's something really to think about. Not to get people scared of vaccines, because if I ain't got the antibodies, they're going to have to, you know, I'm going to get my little beast small. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I stopped dyeing my hair, so.
So let me ask you this, man. What about this this Democratic presidential race that's going on here? What's the pathway to victory for Bernie?
Okay, so Bernie Sanders, first of all, should already be president. Let me go on full disclosure. I believe that Bernie Sanders should currently be the president of the United States. And the reason why I believe that has to do with the amount of valid information that I am able to obtain to know what happened last time. So anybody, since you got time, I would just implore you to research how and the dynamics surrounding Hillary Clinton's unsuccessful campaign. But to me, the way that I think Bernie Sanders wins is by speaking truth to power. And I think that is not more true than now, because if you genuinely do any amount of research, you will figure 2 things out very quickly. One, the mainstream media is not the best source of information to make an informed decision. And 2, it's a lot of people lying and protecting Joe Biden for several reasons that are less than honorable.
There's no doubt about that. There's definitely no doubt about that. And you are, you know, a math guy. So what is the math on these delegates, though? You know,
Man,
Bernie,
he got to get 66%. He got to win 66% of the remaining
to win,
delegates.
But he's only got to get 56% to prevent Biden from getting the number he needs.
And I don't think that's hard. But here's the thing. So right now, I think there has to be some mainstream information around not only the voter suppression, but out and out cheating. Like internationally, I think the canary in the coal mine for cheating is single-digit differential between exit polls and actual results. And we have double-digit differentials in this election cycle. Like literally, it's obvious that it's something ain't white in the milk. And the point of it is there is enough information available to prove that beyond what I think is more than a shadow of a doubt, but it's definitely questionable. And then when you just start to just look at the pattern, Joe Biden, the first primary he ever won was the Super Tuesday after everybody dropped out and endorsed him. And I'm not talking about in this cycle. This is his third time running for president. His first time running for president, he had to drop out because he's a liar.
Right. He lost twice, but he's the most electable. I don't know how you arrived at that conclusion.
And I'm with think he's the most electable because we have a liar. Like too little. Like you almost don't have to pick evil no more. What a thought. Not picking evil. I vote for not evil.
Right, from your perspective. That's right. And then this idea.
That's how I think Bernie wins, though. Most of the people that talk to me, they don't understand manufactured consent, and they'll tell me some stuff like, I don't care who it is, as long as anybody but Trump. And I say, what about Bernie Sanders? And they'll say, well, if the DNC picks him. And it's almost like, well, what's the reason you support him? And then they'll go back into, well, anybody but Trump, the DNC. And it's almost like mind-boggling, because it'll be like if I saw Nick Saban at the bus stop and I just got finished watching ESPN and I want to argue with him about a football game and I saw the highlights on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
It's obvious. It would be so obvious that you don't know what you're talking about. You're just repeating what somebody said about the highlights. Like, and that's what it's like talking politics and listening to a Joe Biden supporter.
That's true. It's a lot of programming going on. But I think even outside of the cheating with this issue with the super delegates, that's going to be another hurdle. But maybe we can mount enough public pressure to hold these super delegates.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
That's the only way. And I think with a lot of people sitting at home and with the online network that Bernie Sanders has, I think if people understand that every time something that's good for Bernie is trending, isn't a Russian operative, and that's something else. So people don't understand that Cambridge analytical situation, but basically we all understand that whatever we go shopping for online, we start seeing it in our timeline, right? And that's because the best predictor of future events is past events, right? Okay, so imagine if you went to Facebook and said, I don't even want to buy ads. I just want to buy the data. That's what Russia did to Facebook. So it ain't like they hacked the election. They bought and so when you hear Andrew Yang talk about our data is the new currency, that's what he's talking about. But we don't understand how that works. So now, because of our misunderstanding, when we see stuff trend on Twitter, if the mainstream media say, oh, that's a Russian hoax. If you don't know, whatever they said on CNN, but CNN wants you to keep going to CNN. You got 1 million people on here, but if you were on Twitter, you will be able to. That's why I started posting after I was typing stuff. I said, I am not a Russian bot. I am not a Russian bot. Because I already know. I know them games. You know what I mean? And then here's another thing, right? Cuba ain't the devil. And that's what I'm saying. But I know why we think Cuba the devil. Because we were told. But if you really just look into history, I ain't saying Cuba.
Right.
I do know, you know what I mean? And I don't smoke cigars. But the point of it is, I know they sending out brigades of people saving people and Florida down there disintegrating. And we got sanctions against Cuba right now during the global pandemic. And I know that those are all true, factual, Googleable things that if I start talking to somebody, they'll start talking to me about conspiracy theories. Now, I'm going to say this about conspiracy theories because I really want people to stop using that term. I want conspiracy theorists to die. And when I say die, not the practice of it because they're good, but become an eater. And I'm calling that an early adopter to reality because the reality is more far-fetched than any conspiracy you're going to cook up about 5G, 4G, the earth flat, all that. Nah, bro. Look up some what's going on today. And all that conspiracy, like for example, and I want to bring this up, but it's going to be a lot of bodies need getting rid of. I know last month, Georgia passed a law where now you can legally dissolve bodies. Yeah, I posted that news article on Twitter too. That's just a fact. Man, that ain't no theory that I'm conspiracizing. That's just the news last month that we ain't paying attention to.
Right. Stranger than fiction. I hear you. Well, listen, Mr. Al Elliott, I appreciate you making time
Man,
for us,
anytime,
and I
man.
appreciate
Anytime.
your perspective on social media, Twitter, Facebook, IG. We'll make sure that we post your handles in the comments. Leave our viewers, our listeners, with your closing thoughts.
Hey, listen, man, take care of yourselves and each other, right? I need a talk show. No, somebody got. Oh, I'm gonna start a comment drill because to me, and I'm gonna lead out with this, right? There's a guy named Neely Fuller Jr., right? He wrote this book in 1984. And the name of this book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It's a textbook workbook for the victims of racism, white supremacy. Now, he's an old guy, and if you've ever heard of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing in the ISIS papers,
Right.
he was her mentor,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, contextualizing that for you, right?
Right.
But he has this book, and the name of it is what I just told you. But you go to the whatever it is. So I don't know, but he would start every podcast with this sentence, and I think it's the most important sentence ever spoken out loud by anybody in this era. And this is what he said: if you do not understand racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else you understand will only confuse you. And that's just the truth. And so I have a couple of ways that I understand racism that I use, but get a good understanding of it. To me, I use two metaphors to help me, right? Because I define racism, and then I'm gonna tell you about the comic strip, and then you're gonna get it. All right. So this look, I came with this today. This breaking news, okay? But yeah, I used to draw back in the day, so I'm gonna say the word with a comic. But the whole thing is with his book, he says that racism is a system that you just can't destroy and then put something else there. You have to simultaneously replace it with something. He suggests replacing it with the system of justice. And he teaches us how to replace racism with the system of justice through our thoughts, speech, and action, right? And so he divides all human activity into 9 areas, right? And it's entertainment, education, labor, law, politics, religion, war, counter war. I mean, he got it all broken down. But the point of it is you learn how to recognize what it is, and to me, not to destroy it, but just to understand it. Because I understand that confusion is an instrument of oppressive regimes. So the less confused we are, the more helpful we can be to ourselves.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like what I thought of when you talked about replacing the system of race, and I've actually heard that quote before, is like replacing the system of racism with justice, which a lot of folks think that the opposite of racism or white supremacy is some other form of another race.
But they don't understand what racism is,
They
which
don't get it.
causes the confusion, which is
It
why it
does.
lasts 400 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I don't know if you all remember Indiana Jones, the original versions of the movies, but whenever he was after like certain artifacts, a lot of times in the movie, if he was about to, he made it to the final place, he found the artifact, he was about to remove it from whatever platform it was on, he always had to gradually replace it. If he wanted to make it out of the tomb, he had to replace something of equal weight and size in that space. If he wanted to, if not, then of course it would set off some trap. He would never make it out. He would never, save the day or whatnot. But
we're gonna have to have a whole episode on racism, but I'm gonna tell you how Neely Fuller defines justice. And basically what he has is a word guide that gives the definition of the word so we can understand in context what we're talking about. But he defines justice like this, because he says justice really don't exist. So he says justice is got 2 parts. It says make sure that no one is mistreated and making sure that the person that needs the help the most gets the most constructive help. And if you do that all the time with your thoughts, speech, and action, you will produce justice. And then if everybody's doing that, where's racism?
That's it. It's just that simple. It's that simple. Yeah. I'll save that thought for another episode, though. I had one more comeback. But hey, listen, we appreciate you. We got to do this again. And I'm looking forward to seeing this comic, man. And we got to get back together on this citywide Wi-Fi initiative, too.
Let's do it, baby. I got the plan. Listen, man, I'm with it. Let's go. I was ready then. Listen, I've been like this since they met me. That's how racism worked. I'm telling you something. And they ain't calling them racist. I'm talking about there's a system that keep the world got to end before we understand. Exactly.
You got to have a crisis. You have to have a crisis.
Everybody know me. Everybody know what I do. But don't nobody listen to me until, oh my God. Ta-da. That's how racism works.
Go ahead and close us out then, Eva, please.
No, I'm just happy to have talked to you guys today. It's been a very informative discussion. So thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to get you back to carry on that discussion we just started. But want to let everybody know that you will eventually find this episode on Communal Expressions YouTube channel as well as iTunes, and it will stream on Facebook later this week. So when you see it, like it and share it. And